Hi everyone. Welcome to the Tailoring of the Month. This is a monthly series where we showcase a tailoring that we're often asked about by our customers. This month, we're going to be taking our first look at our desktop product. We're going to be doing so by creating a dashboard. I'm often asked to showcase things like the ability to create grids or create graphs on our desktop product. Sometimes I'm even asked about putting those into a dashboard. And today, we're going to do all three of those things. We're going to create some components, some grids and graphs, put them together in a dashboard that you can use in our Agility Explorer product. So I'm going to go ahead to my desktop here, and we're going to open up Design Studio this time. So typically when we do tailorings on the handheld applications, we use Form Studio. That's anything on a handheld device. But today we're doing desktop. So think about DS for desktop. That's Design Studio. And that's where we will edit anything that we use on our desktop product. So while we're waiting for this to load up here, one of the most important pieces of this is to make sure we use or create a custom project. So of course in here, I already have a custom project ready to go called the Tailoring of the Month. That is a project I created. It is not a standard WiSys project. That's what you will want to do here so that your changes are not overridden. When you make a tailored grid or something of that sort in a WiSys project, whenever the updater is ran and you update your system, all of your changes to that WiSys project will be overridden. So make sure to remember to create a custom project here. And that can be done by just hitting new project and giving it a name. Now in this case, I have one already. I'm going to open up my tailoring of the month. And like I said, we're going to be creating a dashboard. That's the end goal today. But in WiSys, we have two styles of dashboards. We have a regular dashboard and an analytic dashboard. An analytic dashboard allows you to create some things on the fly, like graphs and grids and things like that, just using some simple SQL queries. A regular dashboard, which is more commonly used, consists of components that already exist in Agility Explorer, right? So we create components like grids and graphs that could be used solo, and we're able to put those into a dashboard here. And today, I'm only going to be using tailored applications that I'm going to create right now. But you would have the ability to access any out-of-the-box WiSys applications and put them into a dashboard as well. Any applications that exist in WiSys will be on that list and available for you to add to your dashboard. But before we get to that, we have to make those components. So we're going to start with two grids. We're going to do two grids and two graphs. I'm going to be making a production dashboard today. So I want to get all kinds of different information based on inventory levels of production items, sales orders with production items on them, production orders that I have scheduled, things like that. So we're going to start with one of our two grids here. First, it's going to be a simple production grid. So I'm just going to call it production orders grid. I think we already have something pretty similar out there in our standard product, but for today, I'm just going to simply create all this stuff myself. So now I'm just going to go to my SQL statement. If you noticed before, when I clicked on components, I selected a regular grid. This is not a process grid. We're not going to do anything in here. This is purely informational. So we can use a regular grid here. And I'm going to go over and grab a query that I already wrote. Today is not intended to be a SQL writing class, and nor is it intended to show you how to get this absolutely perfect, right? I'm going to get you from point A to point B so you can create dashboards yourself and feel pretty comfortable. Then you can play around in there and, of course, work on cleaning up queries or making your grid look as nice as possible. We will clean it up a little bit at the end here, but it doesn't need to be perfect for today. So I dropped in a query. I'm going to format that to make sure it works. And basically what I'm looking at here, I'm looking at my existing open production orders, and I'm just going to grab the start date and production order number, as well as the item, how many we're making of that item, and when the due date is to have that created by. That way, on my dashboard, I have a quick, easy way to look at a list of everything that is already planned to be created. So I'm going to hit apply and OK. And then we can just take a look at our new grid here. A real simple grid, right? Nothing's going on in here. I didn't add any alerts. I didn't add any filters or anything to the design. just dropped in a simple query here so that we get some information that's going to be important to access from within our grid. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and make my second grid here. Again, go to maintenance, new component, and again, we're going to use a regular grid. A process grid allows you to perform transactions through buttons, things like that. We have some other videos up here on our YouTube channel showcasing those, but today we're going purely informative, so we can just go with a regular grid here. In this one, I'm actually going to be taking a look at sales orders that have production items on them. So sales orders for items that we make in-house ourselves. I'm going to call this production SO grid. And again, we're just trying to get some information here. I have a pre-written query. It's going to be pretty simple. Drop that query in here and format it. So here what we're looking at again is when our document status for our order is open, so all the open sales orders, we're looking at sales orders with items that the procurement method is make, so things we're producing, and then we're going to query and bring back our sales order number, the due date for the sales order, the customer name, as well as the item code and the quantity, which again, based on the dashboard that we're creating here, these item codes and quantities are the most important thing. We want that information at our fingertips to have a real good glimpse through these grids at what's going out as far as production items and what's coming in. We can take a look at that grid here again. So again, real simple, right? We have our customer, the sales order number, the due date, as well as that item and quantity, which is the most important piece here. So there's our two grids. And like I said, we're going to be making a graph that goes with each of these grids. So the first graph we're going to do, let's just do one that goes with the grid we just made with our production sales order grid. This is going to essentially be a graph that's going to showcase for us the total quantity of each item that is on existing open sales orders, right? So we're going to look at these items that we need to produce, see how much total is on sales orders, and put that into a nice simple graph here. So here I'm going to go ahead, go to maintenance, new component, and graph. And this one, we're going to be calling it, let's see, production items needed. Production items needed. Again, these might not be the best titles in the world, but it gets us to where we need to be. SQL statement. I'm going to drop in my statement here again. And what I'm doing here is I'm again looking at open sales orders where the items need to be made. And then we're going to look for distinct item codes. So we'll get one of each item that exists on sales orders. So any production item that isn't on a sales order won't be shown in this graph. And then we're going to get a sum of the total quantity that item has on all of the sales orders in our system. So now that's done. But if we take a look at our graph, we'll notice, of course, nothing will be on here yet because we didn't do the graph design. So let's go ahead and drill back in and go to graph definition. We're not worried about buttons or filters today, especially since we're putting this in a dashboard. It's just easier to keep it simple until we get to more advanced dashboard classes. All right, so my graph title here, we'll call it quantity needed for fulfillment, something like that. All right, quantity needed for fulfillment. Our first field is going to be item code, so I'm just going to give it the name items, plain and simple there. It's just a text field, item code. Yep, that's all good. Then our next field is going to show that open sales order quantity, so we'll name it as such. open SO quantity. That's going to just be a number with no decimals. We want to hide the legend. So the reason we're doing that in today's session is typically a legend is good for graphs, right? When we do it on a dashboard, I like to have as much real estate as possible. We're putting 4 components on a dashboard here. We want to maximize our screen space. So I'm just going to hide that. It's not really relevant in this case. It's just going to be one color on the legend for items, right? So it's not relevant. All right, so we'll hide that legend. Then we'll go over to our series. And here in our series, we're going to add one. So we click on the first button there, and we're going to go to that quantity needed. That's what we're going to display in a bar chart format. You know, you could go to all kinds of different formats here, but we're just going to stick with a simple bar. I can name this whatever I want, right? I'll just name it quantity on hand again. All right, and then we will show labels. I want to show x-axis labels. It's going to be easy to tell, and we're going to have a tooltip that allows you to also see what that total quantity is. But I want an x-axis label on there to clearly call out which item we're looking at. Okay, that's all good. All right, I think that's all we want to do here. Apply, okay. And now if we go take a look at our graph here, we'll see all those production items that are sitting out there on sales orders. And again, today we're not, you know, real concerned with having this look as clean as possible. There's a lot of things I can do here, obviously, to try and clean this up and make this look a little bit better. I'm mostly concerned with putting together a quick dashboard. That's the main goal. And we get a little look at how to create graphs and grids along the process, right? So that's our first graph. Now we're going to go ahead and create a second graph. This graph goes with our regular production orders grid. And this is a graph that's going to show the current inventory levels we have of each product. So if I go to my graph here, let's just call it inventory levels. We'll go to our SQL statement and drop in the query that I have here. As I mentioned again, the goal of this is to quickly be able to display some data regarding the total amount we have of all these production items. So if we take a look here, I'm going for only items that we know have open existing sales orders out there. So that quantity needed that we talked about last time, we don't want that to be 0. You know, that way we can again maximize the real estate we have here on the screen, but I don't want to exclude anything that you know, might be worth looking into. And when it comes to maximizing what we have on the screen, it might be smart to add a filter or something like that later. But for today, we're keeping it pretty high level here. So we're going to look at, again, only items that need made on sales orders that are open, where the quantity needed on sales orders for that item is greater than 0. All right. And now, again, I could hit OK here and show you there's no graph yet. We need to go in here and define everything. So first, we're going to give it a title. We're just going to call it inventory levels. And again, our x-axis is going to be our items, item code. And then here we're going to have quantity on hand. So again, we're looking at these items that are on those existing sales orders that need to go out. But in this case, we're going to have a graph that shows what we actually have in the warehouse, so we know if we can fulfill everything that is currently in the system that's going to need fulfilled. I'm not restricting anything based on date. I'm just getting a real high level, big picture, right? If we have a total of 1,000 that needs to go out of an item, how much do we have in inventory levels? And I can get that information quickly here on my dashboard. All right, so I'm going to go number with no decimal. I'm going to hide the legend again to maximize some real estate here on the screen. Then I'm going to go over to my series. And in this case, we're going to go to on hand. We're not doing quantity needed. We want to see our on hand quantity. We want to see the total we have in the warehouse. All right. We'll show our labels again, x-axis labels once again, so we can see what items we're working with here. Apply, okay. Then we'll preview that. Now, again, I like these labels on here because we're doing a dashboard. You run out of a lot of space. A lot of the time, this axis here, you're not getting the information that you really need. So we're going to get a look here. Now, we do have a lot of items here with 0, but in this case, we want to see that because we know, okay, these items have, an existing quantity out there to fulfill, and we don't have anything of them. We can get a quick glimpse of that. Then we can also see items like this FDO50. We have plenty there. We have almost 2,500 in the warehouse, and we can quickly get a glimpse of that information. All right, so now I've created 2 graphs and 2 grids. That was a little part of the session today that gives you a taste for everything that's out there in our Design Studio product. So we have some graphs, we have some grids. Let's go ahead and put it all together in a dashboard. So I'm going to go up to maintenance, new component, and again, this is a regular dashboard. An analytic dashboard is a little bit different. I'll probably do that in a future episode. So we'll go to a regular dashboard here. We'll call it TOM for tailoring of the month, production dashboard. And now creating the dashboard is really simple at first, right? We're just going to add the components that we want to have here. So we'll do everything that is in that tailoring of the month project. Pretty simple here. So in my tailoring of the month project here, yeah, okay, I have another project called tailoring of the month. This is tailoring of month, but that's the one we're working in today. So we're just going to go through and add all of these individually. So that's our production sales order grid that we created. Then we'll do our production orders grid. Then we'll do our 2 graphs. Okay, production items needed. Then we'll do production levels last. Oh no, it's called inventory levels. Sorry guys. There we go. And like I said before too, you see that list is massive there because anything that you have in the agility system, anything tailored or anything out of the box, it's all available for you to put on a regular dashboard here. We'll hit apply and OK. And before we do the design, we're just going to go ahead and do that design in Agility Explorer to show you that you can fluidly jump into Agility Explorer and customize the way that this looks. That being said, every user that has access to this grid on the desktop, once we turn it on in Agility Explorer, they can go in there and they can play with it and customize, the look for how they want to see it, right? So if a user cares much more about seeing the production sales order grid, they can make that the biggest and make every other component small, something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my production menu in Agility Explorer. So I'm going to put in my Agility folder here, tailoring the month production dashboard. We'll just drop it in there. Nice. All right. Now I'm going to open up Agility Explorer. And I am an administrator in my system, so I don't need access turned on in a role or anything like that. I already have access natively. So when I jump in here, if we go ahead and look at production, we will see that grid in there. So TOM production dashboard right here. Give that a minute to open up. And now, first thing we see is the production dashboard does not look too great initially, right? Each component is set up in its own window. It's very segregated. So we're going to clean that up. We can go to layout here, design, and we're going to do a couple things. So I'm going to go to our layout tree. And first thing, I'm going to get rid of some of these individual folders that we have created. So I'm going to drag everything up here to the highest level. If I can, well, I must have to delete them first. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that and bring this back here. Bring this down here. So I'm just kind of removing everything from these folders here so that we can get them all together and it's going to be less segregated. Oh, well, I'm making some mistakes here, but we'll fix that. So now I can drop everything here at the highest level. So you see those folders we were initially in here, these agility viewer folders, we're out of those now, and we're adding everything up here to the top in one layer. So if I get rid of this now, the first thing we see is everything's on the same layer. There's not those windows wrapped around our graphs and grids here separating everything. We're all on the same layer. So that's a start. Now, of course, you can see when I talk about real estate, I have some big queries. Like I said before, it might be nice to add a filter or something like that. We're not concerned with all the details today, but of course, these graphs take up a lot of space here. So now I'm going to get this looking a little bit cleaner now that they're out of those specific windows. And sometimes using the windows is good, depends on preference, depends on how you want it to look. Here, I want it all together, just a real clean dashboard. So I go back into design, get this out of my way here, and now I can move around the specific components. So I'm gonna grab my inventory levels, put it here, and I wanna make sure that I'm putting things like inventory level with the correct thing. So I have inventory level paired here with my grid that showcases my production orders. Then I'm going to do the same thing here where I have my sales orders and my sales order quantity graph there. Now we can close that out. And you see, this is a start. It's not the cleanest in the world. Maybe I'm better off not having these data callouts here to see the item name. Maybe I could slim down my query so there's not as much in my bar graph here. There's ways to make this look a lot cleaner, of course, but today the goal was to get us something concrete. One thing I probably will do is bring this over more because I don't need all that space on those grids. So you see it's really easy to customize. When we talk about the design tools being pretty much drag and drop style, that's what we're looking at here, right? You can grab these, drag them around. Once they're turned on inside of the dashboard, you can do all the dashboard customization here in Agility Explorer, and I can save my own personal layout. And when I come in here, that's how it's going to look for me. Can refresh my data as I need to, but here we go. So once this is turned on, my users can jump in here. They can take a look and say, okay, I see I need a lot of this FD510U10 item. There's a lot on sales orders, right? So let's go ahead and just take a look real quick at that total quantity on those sales orders. Try and drill into that. And we can, okay, we see it's only 5 sales orders, but they all ask for a lot. How much do I currently have in inventory? That's an important question, right? If I go up here, of course, I can see in my graph, it's a little bit hidden here, but I think it's this one right here. It's our FD10U10 right above it. I have like nothing in there. So am I going to be producing some of this? Let's see. We do have 2 production orders for a total of 44 there. That's not going to be enough. We really have barely any inventory in there. So this gives me a quick glimpse looking at my dashboard that I need to create some production orders here for that item. So that's a little bit of the power of what we can do in a dashboard. Of course, anything you can do in a grid or a graph or anything like that would be applied to this dashboard, right? So when I talk about production orders, I could add a button in here that I could just create a production order from within here because I see, I see the issue that I don't have enough inventory, or I could create an inventory transfer request, or whatever I need to do, I could do that from within here, again, using the design tools to create that. So that's a start. That gets you what you need to make graphs, grids, and put them into a dashboard. I hope you learned something. Of course, there's more customizing that can be done here, but have some fun with it, play around, and see what you get. And I would be very interested in everyone's feedback because I hear a lot about people wanting to see things for the desktop product. So if that's the case, if you want to see more for the desktop, let me know. We could get more advanced with the dashboards, do some dashboards that have buttons and functionality in there, or we could zero in more on grids or graphs, any component really that you want to see. So thanks for your time. I hope you learned something.